That's been changing over the last couple of hours. Initially, they said there had been 30 missiles and they'd got a third of them. Then it went up to 110, and that tallies better with the numbers that the Western allied forces are giving us. They're now saying they brought down almost all of those. Still, the Russian government and the Syrian government only confirming one of those hits on that scientific research center in Barzeh near Damascus, which some people say the Syrian government are saying is an education center, and the Americans are saying was actually used as a chemical weapons research facility. Now, the other hits that may or may not have taken place were around Homs. We heard there were two others, a base and a storage facility. We still don't know if that happened. There's also a Air Force base where we think that the chemical weapons attack took place from, that supposedly has been hit. Rebels in the Kalamun Mountains saying that's the case. Still no confirmation of that. We've heard some rumors that there has been an engagement between a drone, which would have come through probably from US forces to check on the damage that had been done, and some Syrian armed forces jet fighters. Again, none of those confirmed, and perhaps the most worrying of all of these, a possible hit on a base of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who are there fighting on the side of President Assad. But so far, none of the bases of his allies have been hit, just Syrian forces. So if there has been an escalation in attacking a different country's base, that's quite concerning.
Leila, you mentioned Iran there. We have heard reaction from Tehran. Also, Hezbollah has been speaking out. What other kind of reaction has there been coming in from regional leaders?
Right, so over the last couple of hours, we've had more of these. Now, Hezbollah stepped forward yesterday. Hezbollah, the Islamist organization in the south that has lots of foot soldiers in Syria helping President Assad through the Iranian government. They came through yesterday bringing Israel into the fray, saying Israel and America are linked and they'd be ready to fight if anything happened. However, earlier today, they released a statement. Hassan Nasrallah released a statement, the leader, saying, although we condemn this and this is a terrible action and targets the Syrian people, but not actually being bullish about any sort of action on their part. The Israelis then got involved and came forward saying that this was an absolutely necessary strike and that chemical weapons cannot be tolerated, adding, though, as well, bringing Hezbollah, their regional rival, in and saying that they're concerned both about the Syrian government and about Hezbollah behavior. And then, of course, from Iran, we had this reaction damning the strikes and saying that it was an infringement upon Syrian sovereignty.
And Leila, we've been hearing from the British Prime Minister Theresa May. She hasn't ruled out further action depending on how Syria or Russia react to those airstrikes this morning. What should we be preparing for over the coming hours, over the coming days?
So there's been a real atmosphere of bullishness for this morning from the Syrian government and the Russians. We saw President Assad earlier on the government's Twitter feed and on their Syrian station, walking in as though nothing had happened at all. They've been very clear that it's business as usual. We've had people out on the streets in Damascus and Syrian state TV publicising that. Then from the British government, quite a lot more hawkish on this than we would usually expect from them. But of course, they've got a little bit more skin in the game because they have just experienced on their own soil a chemical weapons attack by the Russians. So they really can't afford to be messing around with this. So Prime Minister May there saying this morning, we heard from the Americans when it was announced, the missile strike was announced, we heard them saying this was a one-time strike and it would depend if anything else happened with chemical weapons. Prime Minister May slightly more hedging her bets there, saying this was the first step we needed. We decided not to wait any longer to see if the chemical weapons inspectors came back with a report because we were absolutely sure they'd done it. And it wasn't just about this recent attack in Duma, but the use of chemical weapons over the last few years. And now they really want to see a response. Now, we're not getting any kind of response or backing down from either the Russian government or President Assad's government. So we're really still exactly at loggerheads, and everyone is poised for another strike here unless one side decides to back down.
And Theresa May was also asked about possible regime change in Syria. Now, she declined to say whether or not she thought Assad should go. What are people saying in Lebanon? Is it too early to talk about that kind of reaction at this stage? Are people just solely focused on those strikes this morning?
Everyone just focused on the strikes at the moment. As I say, we didn't expect these last night because, as far as everyone was aware, these inspectors from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons from the UN were going in last night. It turns out that they didn't go in last night. They may be going in this morning. That's not yet confirmed. So these strikes came as quite a surprise to many people. So really, we're looking ahead to that. At the moment, of course, Prime Minister May not wanting to get involved with discussions of regime change because they've been very specific about the fact that this is about chemical weapons usage and ensuring that the international community understands chemical weapons cannot be used. And of course, there are concerns about a background in Afghanistan and Iraq, and they want to be very clear that they're not looking at any sort of ground invasion or trying for regime change at the moment. And from the Syrian government side and the Russian government side, they are saying this will do absolutely nothing to change the status quo, and President Assad firmly has the country in his grasp.